Sponsorship's like a $60 billion industry, so it's huge. Sports is about 70%. But I love what sports does and brings. I remember there were like moments where I was like, that's broken, that's broken, that's broken. When you start dreaming and waking up and thinking like, if there was a text on my phone and it's like, oh, someone's doing the idea that you've thought of, then it's a good time. Essentially like an Airbnb for sports sponsorship.
This is Ishveen Jolly's story, from being a sports actor as a child, to going into consulting, to then building the Airbnb or sponsorship, open sponsorship. We talk through her journey of why she made the decision she did, how sales gave her so much confidence to build what she's building, and how she managed to get on some of the biggest names in sports to her platform. This is a really enjoyable episode, and I hope you enjoy. I'm Umar from the Bay HQ, and this podcast is powered by HSBC Innovation Banking. So great to have you on today, and it's amazing what you've achieved so far. But I'd love to rewind to like your childhood. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
I don't think I was one of those kids that had that like, I want to be X, Y, and Z. It's funny because I actually tell people now, interns who come and work for us, I'm like, I think it's more important to know what you don't like. And then you have like a very short list at the end. And my parents are both doctors, classic. And I did all the sciences and maths, GCSEs, A-levels, obviously I have to do that. But I remember I had dissection class and I almost fainted. I had to leave class and I was like, right, I'm not going to be a doctor. So I think I accounting, I did like a internship. I was like, nope, don't want to do that. So I think I kept crossing things off my to-do list. And mostly because obviously where I've ended up is not a career that is presented to you as an option. So I probably didn't think I wanted to be anything because I didn't know all the things I could be when I was young that I might want to do.
What did you end up studying if you weren't sure yet what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I suppose you just kind of go with the flow of like what you're good at and what you kind of your teachers like tell you to do. So, you know, I did the sciences, I did maths, and then I studied economics and management at university. And kind of testament to that, the other day I was speaking to my little sister and she did economics. And I was like, why did you do that? And she goes, because you did it. Okay, well, stupid. But so clearly there is very little rhyme or reason why we do certain things.
I did economics as well. And why did I do that? Because it kicks the can down the road of making a decision, right? It's like, oh, the economics, I can do other things, hopefully, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And when you were studying economics, did you have then any better idea of what you wanted to do? Or was it just kind of going with the flow and continuing? Or what did you think then?
Well, I suppose testament to the point, I work in marketing and I didn't take the marketing module during the course that was available to me while at uni. So clearly I had no clue what I was genuinely interested in. And I was literally just like, oh, what are you picking? I'll do the same thing.
And you did a lot of other stuff at university as well, right? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So I suppose that the theme is I was a good student, but it was like for the sake of being a student and making sure my like parents didn't like whoop my ass. But really the thing that I did intentionally was sports. So from 10, probably my first netball game was like 10 years old. From like 10 years old to even today, like sport has been the thing that I am most intentional about that brings me the most joy.
And what sports were you playing at university? Did it ever get that position of, you know, the whole bend it like Beckham thing, right? Of like, you need to focus on your studies, or were you able to manage that quite well?
Yeah, I think I actually, Oxford, your exams are only in your third year, so which is a bit of a joke. So first and second year literally don't count for shit, and all your exams at the end of third year. So the whole thing is there that you basically do whatever you want, and then third year is like miserable. And I played sport all the way through, and a lot of people were like, you should have given it up by now. But it wasn't, unfortunately, I wasn't of the Bend It Like Beckham level for it to be like taking over my life to the point that I was like going to play for England or anything. But I think it's also really important to understand, like, as I said, like what brings you joy and what relaxes you. And I think those things keep you sane through these very intense periods. So like even today, like I know that I need to factor like the gym or working out into a very busy schedule, because that is what will make sure that I don't like blow my head off kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's sad as well how many people give up sports or dance or whatever it is after they go to university or things like that, because I think it's quite common for a lot of Asian people to do that when they're at school. But then they go to university, they kind of have to start kind of get down, and then so many people want to start working. It's just like, oh, okay, I don't have time for this anymore. when, like I said, it brings people so much joy, and it's like, it's just a shame that happens.
100%. I did a lot of, we talked about our like COVID journeys. One of my big things was like almost rediscovering who I am. There was obviously a lot of change. I moved from America back to England and all of these things. And there was a lot of reading I did around like your inner child and what makes you happy. And I don't think people know enough what like actually makes them happy. A good question I have for like is, tell me 5 things that you can do that aren't reliant on anyone else that bring a smile to your face. And it could be as simple as sitting in the sun. And for me, I try and work outside. So, and a lot of people are like, well, as a CEO, like, don't you need 3 screens? It's like, well, if being in the sun makes me feel happier and therefore I can work double the amount of hours, that is definitely a better setup than having 2 screens inside.
And today you can do that, but I guess not often in London you can do that often, sit in the sun.
Yeah, that's true.
So once you graduated university, right, then obviously you didn't go straight into what you're doing today. What was that first decision of the career you're going to go into?
Yeah, I genuinely thought there was like investment banking, accounting, consulting. I think like that was it. I think those were the 3 options. And I went into consulting. I did know that I, again, like I worked at Ernst & Young over summer, and I realized like I didn't want to work at a big company. It was crazy to me that they offered me a job after like that internship. Now I can look back and understand it a bit more, but like I did nothing like for whatever 6 weeks of that internship, and then they're like, great, we value you, here's a job offer, and you're like, wait, what? So I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. So I went to a small consulting group called Javelin Group, loved it. And honestly, for all the like to be entrepreneurs, I think having a first role where you are learning from people who are wiser, older than you, some like hard skills like Excel and how to write an email and PowerPoints, and like someone has to teach you that. And it sounds so basic, but it's so valuable. And so I really, really loved the experience. But I remember feeling like you leave university and your parents have told you and everyone's told you like, you can do whatever you want, just finish this, and then you get to that first job and you're like, okay, this is like, I'm not really doing what, and I think lawyers have it worse when or whatever else, but like I just remember feeling like, is this it? Like what's going on? Like, is this everything? And so I suppose that started the new discovery.
It's quite an interesting decision then what you went into next, right? Because it's such a departure from, I guess, what most people think like an Asian would do, right? So he's gone to Oxford and then gone into consulting and done these things. What was behind that decision? Was it a snap decision? Was it something you took a long time to think about?
I think again, like that, like not really thinking. So I took a week off work and I went to, I don't even know, like maybe it was Walthamstow, and I did a sports coaching course for like a week. I think I applied and I got some like scholarship to do it. Okay. I have no interest, not no interest, but like, I'm not really looking to be a sports coach. I have no clue why I used a week's worth of holidays to do that. And like, if one of my team today told me like, we're taking a week off work to do like a bakery cooking class, I'd be like, do you want to be a chef? Like, no one really asked me. I just did it, came back to work. And so I think it was like a very slow, I think there was someone I said, I'm really passionate about sport. And someone I worked with introduced me to, a friend of theirs from uni. He'd gone to Cambridge. He was a few years ahead and he worked at IMG. I'd never even heard of IMG. I didn't even know that world existed. And so I think it was like a slow kind of like peeling back the onion, like the layers of like, oh, there's a world out there that like sounds so stupid, but we just, think if you, like no one growing up, no one worked at like CAA or IMG or any of these like in Hollywood or sports or for a sports team that we knew about. So it took me a minute to get there. And then actually I met someone who introduced me to my boss to be, and I got a job offer. And my parents said no to me moving abroad to India and to me taking this job. So whatever old I was, like 22, 23, I can't remember. But like, I basically like sat there, like a bit upset, but like listening to my parents. And then 2008, like recession kind of hit. I got promoted, but no pay rise. And I was a bit like, come on, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'll be back in 6 months. And basically, obviously, I did my like, passive aggressive like stand, and they kind of agreed to say yes. So then I moved to India.
Even for yourself then, right? Like, moving to India, was that ever something you thought you'd do? Like, or how was that experience of like then moving there? Obviously quite a culture shock from like your background as well.
Honestly, I used to go to India as a child, like a lot of people, every 2 or 3 years. I hated it. Like we'd go to, my mum's from Bhopal, and like we'd go there and I wasn't allowed to wear like sleeveless clothes, even though it was like boiling, and like weird men would look at you weird, and like all of the weird things that happen in India. You get sick and, you know, whatever. And I really disliked it. And then I went when I was maybe during uni, I think. And clearly something had just changed. And I was just like, wow, this country like exists. It like exists in a way that I've never seen anything else. Like everyone's kind of happy. It kind of works. It was just very appealing to me. So that reckoning came very late. And again, like my parents had a bet. They were like, she's going to be back in a month. And then when I wasn't, they were like, she's only doing this because she went, if we'd sent her, she'd be back in 6 months. And obviously I stayed and loved it.
So what happened out there? What were you doing there?
So I worked for an agency, very small, like 10 people maybe. And they had fashion. And he was a former Australian cricketer, and he was married to like an Indian supermodel. So they had fashion and then they had sports. And I was on the sports side. And so my biggest clients were Mumbai Indians, and this was second year of IPL. And then formerly Hero Honda, now Hero Motorcorp, and they sponsored kind of everything. And so within a week, so the office was in Delhi, but within a week I was in Mumbai. And bearing in mind, I was a management consultant. Like I wore a suit, I went to work, I ate like M&S sandwiches for lunch, like very normal life. And my first ever meeting was to broker a deal between Mumbai Indians and a telecom company called Idea. And it started at like maybe like 6 p.m. and went on till like 3 a.m. in the morning. Right. And like, I love my old boss, but like, to give you a kind of an insight, I spoke in the meeting and I got a text on the table that said like, do not speak unless I tell you to. And obviously like going from like being a management consultant where you're like encouraged to give your views, and like, you know, I think you're very privileged in like this like zone 1 London where you don't have to validate like you're here because you belong here. But obviously in India, like most people probably thought I was like the secretary and like, you know, so there was a lot of like, it helped me for my America move, where it really made me realize like the value of like having to drop the university label, or like having to talk about like being a management consultant, and which again was quite useful for America as well. So it was a huge learning, hard but amazing.
And guess no regrets, obviously, at that point.
Oh no, like I loved it, loved it. Yeah.
And then, so you said that you were there for 6 months. I guess that's for the season, right? Or why was it 6 months? Or did you then come back to the UK? Or go straight to America? What happened next?
Oh, no. So that was what my parents, so I stayed out for 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So like made it quite well in there. Was really fortunate, like had a really good client in Mumbai Indians. IPL second year, moved to South Africa. So like it was just an amazing experience because I was like part of the like MI family in like a foreign land. And then Hero were amazing to me. So like basically did like Commonwealth Games, multiple ICC tournaments, golf, like loads of different things.
And obviously that transition from management consultants, what you're doing there, what did you enjoy most about that role? So obviously there's one part which is like getting to work with people you're working with, but obviously you had to now transition from in a management consultant role. Like you said, you have to have a stronger voice. What was it in that new environment that you enjoyed the most?
I think I was young, and at quite a young age, having like the ability to like to prove myself, to be in like a sink or swim situation. I suppose again, like probably why I love working in America. It's very meritocratic, and I think in England there's like you know, if you think about all of the setups, it's like you work for 1 year and then you get promoted and then you keep going, and there's like a hierarchy, and then you know, it'll take you 10 years to make partner and all of that. So there's not, you know, you don't bring in business until you reach a certain age. This is your job. And getting over there, it was like, if you could do it, do it. If you could prove yourself. If you can like, win a big client. If you can close a deal. And again, very quite startup environment where it's like your hustle will and I think that was quite liberating for me because I was able to, and the management consulting side really helped because what happened was I would put like charts together and my clients would be like, we've never seen anyone present like this before. And it was like, okay. And then, you know, and they trusted me more because of that. And so it was just, it was quite liberating to like as hard as I wanted to work. And again, that probably helped me in my entrepreneur life as well.
See, with your sports background as well, right? How much did that come into it? Was the passion for sports from your university days as well? Or did it necessarily matter that it was a sports field you're working in a lot of the time? Like, did it feel kind of great from that aspect as well? Obviously, I'm guessing you're quite a big sports fan, so.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. I am a massive sports participation fan. I love playing. When Ryan Giggs was my first poster, which is a shame because I see everything he did. But
hasn't aged well, that one.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, still, he was my first poster, and I was obsessed with like sports and all of that. But if you remember, like when we were quite young, sports went over to cable. And like we had like the solid four channels and then became 5. And so I didn't really grow up watching a lot of sports. And, you know, like my dad wore a turban. And so we didn't really he never took us to Man United because it was racist, I presume, or whatever else. And so being like, actually, when I moved to India, I met like, obviously in the first weeks of being there, like, Sachin and all of these guys. And I actually didn't really recognize most of them, even though I played cricket at school, which sounds so stupid, but it wasn't like, I love sports, but I'm not a fan of the, like, there's very few people I've met who I'm like, you take my breath away kind of with your stardom. But I love what sports does and brings. So yeah.
We hope you're enjoying the episode so far. We just want to give a quick shout out to our headline partners, HSBC Innovation Banking. One of the biggest challenges for so many startups is finding the right bank to support them. Because you might start off and try to use a traditional bank, but they don't understand what you're doing. You're just talking to an AI assistant or you're talking to somebody who doesn't really understand what it is you're even trying to do. HSBC have got the team that are built out over years to make sure they understand what you're doing, they've got the deep sector expertise, and they can help connect you with the right people to make your dreams come true. So if you want to learn more, check out hbcinnovationbanking.com. I wonder if that almost helped you, because if many other people in that job that you were doing would see Sachin and then not be able to speak properly, whereas because you weren't overwhelmed, you could really present yourself in the best way possible as well. And when did the like seeds of like open sponsorship come from? Like when was that idea starting to form?
I think it was like really over many years and many different. If I look back now, even when I was working in India, there was I was working on a golf event, and often they'll have like a marquee player, which means someone from like the US or the UK comes over and is paid by the title sponsor to be there and elevate the status of the game. A little bit different now because it's so big in Asia. And this marquee player came over and I was like, oh, are you doing a lot of sponsorship while you're here? And he was like, well, no, my agent doesn't know anyone in India or Dubai or Turkey or wherever I'm playing. So I remember thinking, I remember there were like moments where I was like, that's broken. And then ultimately when I started the company, I presume it was like a lot of little broken. I'm sure it's the same for you. It was like, there was many snippets of like, that seems a bit odd. We don't have that. And then you finally have enough conviction.
And what was that tipping point? Was there a moment where like, because I guess you've got the little idea of, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this. When was like a fully formed, like, okay, here's what I think can solve this problem?
I think I was living in New York at the time, and Uber was really growing. There was a company in New York whose founder I had met called, the company was called ZocDoc. It was like a booking service for doctors. I was using LinkedIn. So I think it was like that early, all of these websites, you were like seeing their ability. And then I would think about my own day job and think, this is so archaic, like this doesn't make sense. So, and it took me a minute. I have to, I think I got to the point, I think I say this thing where I'm like, when you start dreaming and waking up and thinking like, if there was a text on my phone and it's like, oh, someone's doing the idea that you've thought of, then it's a good time to like, if you're actually nervous about someone else doing it, it's probably a good time to do it.
And then can you tell us like what was the idea at the beginning?
It's kind of similar to now, but this is very much more focused. I think what's pivoted is the messaging and the positioning, but the idea is like the same. So essentially like an Airbnb for sports sponsorship. Sponsorship's like a $60 billion industry, so it's huge. Sports is about 70%. And so I just was like, there must be actually one of the big things I was doing for Hero. They were expanding into South America. So I had been to like Colombia and to find deals for them. And, I'd sit across team people and they'd be like, well, how much money do you have? And it's like, well, how much does it cost? And they're like, yeah, how much money do you have? And you're like, this doesn't seem right. And then you go back and tell the client and they're like, yeah, we'll revisit in 3 months. And you're like, oh, am I going to have to do the whole? So I just remember thinking, how is there no efficiency in this? And so the idea was essentially you have a platform where every sponsorship opportunity in the world is listed. Everyone can go and basically go teams, shirts, let's say Bay is like, all right, I want to sponsor the IPL team for that amount of money. Bid. Of course, there's a lot of nuances. Marketplaces are hard to solve. We've seen them over and over again. And so really where we're at right now is where it started with like team and events and everything. It was the athlete side that really took off.
And obviously the role you're doing, right, there's a lot of autonomy in that. You're having to go to these different places and create deals. But this would be the first time, I guess, when you started that's your own thing. How did that feel? Was that a big deal to you? Or was it something which you built up the confidence for all these amazing things you've done already to be like, no, I can do this?
My job in India was, on reflection again, like you don't think about what you're doing. I was a sports agent, but really you're doing sales. When you do sales, I think it's the most underrated skill for everyone to have. I think there's like a weird taboo around doing sales. I suppose equities, financial, but otherwise and I think what happens is you know how to have ownership. You run your own little P&L, your own book of business. And so it's kind of like that, but having to do a lot of other things. So I suppose the confidence came from like, if I can do a multi-million-dollar deal, I can. But I also just didn't really think about it. I think most entrepreneurs probably don't think too much. Otherwise you'd be stuck.
I guess it's interesting because some people have like this idea where they like build up for ages before they get ready to like take the leap. And then some people, like I said, are more nonchalant of like, yeah, this will work out. It'll be fine. And it's interesting to see the different aspects where it's not necessarily one route to it. And I actually said that like marketplaces are hard, right? And there's a lot of people trying to build marketplaces that haven't done very well. And obviously you've bucked that trend, right? And you've been able to build out open sponsorship. What do you think you were able to do at the beginning that enabled you to like really get going well and avoid some of the pitfalls of other marketplaces?
I don't know if, back to what you were saying, I think I classify it as like silly entrepreneurs like me who just like get going, and then like business school entrepreneurs who sit there and like spend 2 years doing an MBA to like figure out what business they want to start. I think passion is a huge thing. So I'm not sure like we avoided the pitfalls, but I'm obviously so passionate about what we're doing. And it helps that it is a sexy industry. So like the benefits, even when it's going a bit shit, I get invited to a ball game and it reminds me like, this is a good, I like my space. So I think the passion is really helpful. Because I think for most people it is about, like I said, when we first started, I remember someone saying about a year in influencer marketing, and I'm like, I will never use those words. What are you talking about? This is sponsorship. And now I'm like, we are influencer marketing. Do you know any influencer marketing people? So I think it's like being a little bit adaptive, which, no offense to the boys out there, I think women are sometimes a bit more flexible, and like listening. A lot of listening to your customers, and just like a lot of hard work. But as I said, that's I can do it because I'm really passionate.
And how did you get those first customers on board, right? Because like I said, it's an idea which is quite archaic, the industry at that time. And I guess people might want a solution, but like you've got to convince them that you're the ones who are going to work and it's going to be worth their time to come on board. So how did you convince the first people?
Our offering, today we've got a lot of copycats, but it was really innovative. And In fact, sometimes I meet people who are starting a company and I'm like, doesn't that exist? Which is really like, I mean, I'm sure you have a view because you look at more decks, but I'm always a bit confused when I meet people who start a company that's just a slightly different version of something that already exists. So I think for us, now the problem with building something that doesn't exist is it takes a little bit longer to get adoption. The adoption is quite it's low LTVs, right? So people are like, sure, I'll do a test budget with you for like 5K or 10K. I'm not winning a whole contract from someone else to over here. So it's just a bit different, but it wasn't that hard to get people to sign on. Well, one is we made it free for the athlete agent side, or the team free, like the rights holder side. So that's no brainer. You want sponsor, I mean, it's obvious, you want sponsorship dollars. We're not going to charge you unless we give you a deal. Basically everyone signed up and thought, God bless, you're probably not going to get us a deal. On the brand side, we still are probably too cheap. So which is a big sin of many startups. So it's very easy. I'm not going to say easy because my sales team would hate me, but it's a unique value prop. It's underpriced, to be honest. It's quite high value. And so why not? We kind of make it very easy for you to give us a go.
And building that initial platform as well, right? Because from my understanding, you don't have the tech background there. How did you build that all out? How did you get the idea of how you're going to make it work? Or because I guess as people might have an idea like you where they think their job at the moment is there's something that could fix that problem.
Yeah.
But then because they don't have the tech side, they get hesitant, they don't know what to do. How did you solve that side of things?
So there's a big difference between can you build it, but can you visualize it, right? I am actually a big product person. So I back when we first started, taught myself this tool called Balsamic, which I think, does it still exist? Yeah.
Yep, I used that back in the day, my old day job. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I wireframing and all of this. And I would love spending time on other marketplaces to see functionality. And so, yes, I don't code, but I love product. And I think that is absolutely necessary. If you don't love product, then you probably shouldn't start a tech company, even if you think you have a great idea, because if you're the visionary in the business, I don't think you can think that your engineer will be able to just build the product without your vision on the product side. And
then can you share with us as well, you said that there's been a small pivots, but it's mainly the same core idea. What does open sponsorship look like today? What's the journey been?
Yeah. So I'd say obviously that messaging, I think understanding your user personas. So we have Mary, the marketing manager. This is company size. We have Fred, the founder, who's our user. And then we have Alex, the agency. And so I think it's honing in, we signed Walmart as a client, right? Fortune 1. I can tell you right now, I love Walmart. I always want them to work with us, but they're not truly our ICP. And that means that you never know when they're not going to need you, and various other things. And so I think there's been a lot of just understanding the business a lot more and regrafting. I'd say the biggest change, which I love and hate, which is really interesting, is in the last 2-3 years, what's really helped us truly go up and to the right has been this realization that people don't want another platform to log into. As on the business side, as a consumer, we are generally quite we want to optimize our life. We will, if it saves us a few pounds, we'll walk a long way around. We'll do things. We're driven by different things. But when it comes to being in a work setting, one, because other people are paying for it. Two, because no one wants to work more hours and work more isolated. What we have realized is we could offer a full service white glove solution, charge more for it, have more control about how you use our platform and how you use our athletes. And basically you're also happier. So we built this amazing platform that's got great UX, that's got 20,000 athletes. And what we tell you is, hey, don't worry if you never want to use it. Here's a person, pay us more and they'll use it for you. And it's kind of weird and ironic. And I hear it's a big trend in the tech space right now. So it kind of kills me and makes me laugh.
And what are you most proud of this journey so far? Because obviously you've done so much and there's been many wins along the way. What makes you happiest of the different things you've done?
I think one, that we're still around. There's many times that like we could have given up. So one. Two is, you know, like in a time especially where like lots of people are being laid off and like unemployment rates are like weirdly not reflective of what I think they probably are in society. But I've built a company that like feeds people and gives them insurance and, you know, whatever else. And I think like that's really, really gratifying. You know, the other day, like one of our engineers celebrated 3 years and it's like, wow, I built a company that someone has like chosen to work at for 3 years. So I think that's obviously amazing. Of course, like putting money into the hands of athletes, some need it, some don't. But like that's really fun. And then probably like a little bit of personal growth, like
just a little bit? Or?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you know, often like one of our investors gifted me an exec coach. And it's so funny, like, and sometimes I do my own personal therapy and like, I basically had to like decide which one to do because it was a lot of overload. But I think it's the traits that make you, like your strengths are your weaknesses. And I fully believe that. So like the things that make me a great CEO can also make me like probably a shit manager at times, and the traits that make me X or Y or whatever else. And so I think this constant, but it's, I embrace the constant evolution. So that's probably what I'm proud of in myself. And
then what are you most excited about for the future?
Well, we're trying to, we're on our path to profitability. We're marching. We had a really good Q1 in April. And so I'm excited about, you know, TBD. We're thinking, you know, either we get acquired or we raise a big round and start acquiring ourselves. So that's really fun to think about.
And you mentioned there about the team as well. And like, how big is the team now?
15 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's always interesting when people have made that transition of when you have the idea at the beginning and then growing out that team, and how like it's nice to hear that people are staying with you and they're like enjoying working there, right? Even if you said like sometimes it's trying to manage that personal dynamics, right? And I'm going to go into quick 5 questions now. So first one is, who are 3 British Asians you think are doing incredible work and you'd love to shout them out today?
Yeah. So one is a good friend of mine who is also marketplace founder. He was 2 years above me at school and then also at uni. And I remember like when I was quite young, like when I was a management consultant, sometimes I go for like lunches with him and his friends. And I just like, even though it was 2 years, I like watch how they like would exchange like tips and tricks, and like I'll introduce you to that person. And I just remember being like, I kind of want to be you when I grow up, even though and so his name's Arvin. He runs a company called Housekeep. I don't know if you and it's nice to have someone who's in the marketplace space that I sometimes like go to for advice. And I do think he is helping other people, does some VC stuff. So yeah, you could look him up. 2 is a friend who also is maybe my only friend who invested in open sponsorship, a guy called Manhad Narula. And, you know, as I don't know how you feel about this, but like definitely as a female South Asian, like raising from friends and family was not something that I would have ever done. Now I have such a different perspective. I think it's an honor to allow, like I wish my friends and family were invested, because I'd be hopefully making the money and proud, and I've invested in some friends and I think it's lovely. But I remember like it being one of those like weird things that like, I don't know, the white MBA kids in New York were doing, but I was like, no, I'm never going to ask like my parents or my family to invest or friends to invest. And so he did invest, and I just think it's so nice that like you took a shot on me. And then third, I could name any one of my family members, but I mentioned my little sister, and she works for the civil service, and we lived together for the past 3 years. And I just sometimes having, I obviously employ quite a lot of millennials, and maybe even millennials, I presume, like that age bracket. And I think sometimes as a CEO and a leader, you can be disconnected. So I have really enjoyed like coming out and being like, "Arr," and then her giving me her perspective. Like even the work from home stuff, like she never switches on her camera, but she works really hard. But I can see that. So she's earned the right to not, whereas I would not be okay with my team not switching on their cameras. But it's like, I think it's been really helpful to like see a different perspective.
What's your little sister's name?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to say. Kavneet Jolly.
Okay. But I say, because most people in the audience won't know your sister's name.
Oh, yeah. God, come on, guys.
Yeah. So all lovely shout outs there. The next question is, if people want to find out more about you, more about what you're up to, where should they go to?
Yeah, so go to opensponsorship.com. Recommend this to anyone who has money so I can be profitable and, take our next milestone. And obviously me, LinkedIn, is probably the easiest place.
And is there anything that you need help with right now, or Open Sponsorship needs help with?
You never really know what you don't know, or what you thinking about. Like, for example, AWS recently put us on a program where they're paying for someone to help us think about AI, which is kind of cool. So I'd say like, if you have any thoughts, it's always fun to, and one of the things we've done is kept our full-time team lean, but we try and bring on like consultants to do like interesting specific projects in like this new business world. So yeah, happy to hear.
So thanks so much for coming on today. Have you got any final words for the audience?
No, keep doing what you're doing. Well done. And thank you for all your hard work for the community.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.